Wouldn't it be nice to have several thought leaders in your industry know and love your brand? Start a podcast. Invite your industry's thought leaders to be guests on your show and start reaping the benefits of having a network full of industry influencers. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. I'm your host for today's episode, Logan Lyles, Director of Partnerships here at Sweetfish Media. I am joined today by Michael Haynes. He is a B2B Customer Strategy Specialist at 2Excel Consulting. He is also the author of a book called Listen, Innovate, Grow. Michael, how you doing today, man?
Very good. Thanks, Logan. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Excited to jump into this framework that you talk about in your book of Listen, Innovate, and Grow, and break down these different areas to look specifically at where you've found companies can make some small tweaks for some big impact on their business growth. Before we dive into today's topic, Michael, I would love for you to share with our listeners a little bit about yourself and what the team at 2Excel Consulting is up to these days.
Great. Thanks, Logan. So, yes, my company is 2Excel Consulting. So I'm a B2B customer specialist, as you said, and I do a lot of work with startups and small, medium businesses in really helping them to identify opportunities in the market and how to build and grow through the business-to-business context. And I've been working with organizations across a range of industries, transportation, telecommunications, financial services, a fair bit of technology companies, and all about really how they can really put that Listen, Innovate, Grow framework by understanding their markets, their customers, their industries, and how they can get an in-depth understanding and use that to identify where they need to focus and what they need to do to build and sustain and have a profitable business.
I love it. And, we hear as salespeople and marketers all the time that we need to start with listening to our customers, with understanding our market and the target audience that we're trying to communicate with. You had some specific areas as we dive right into this first part of the framework in listening, Michael, on where to listen and where folks are kind of missing the mark these days. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure, Logan. So in terms of listening, it's very important that B2B companies, product and service providers listen on three levels. They need to listen to themselves in terms of understanding themselves as the business owners and their companies, where they're performing, what are their strengths, what are their capabilities. Usually companies are generally pretty good at doing that. They need to secondly listen to the market. So understanding what's happening in their market in terms of industry trends, what are end customers need, what are their competitors are doing, are there new government regulations? So really keeping understanding on that broader macro level, but listening to the market. And then the third area is listening to business customers. And this is an area which is critical and most important, and where many organizations, both small and large, often are not doing it justice in a business-to-business context. Within listening to business customers, you need to be listening to both the users of your product and or service offering, but you also need to understand those involved in the buying decisions. And that's where it often falls off, because often a lot of effort is spent understanding what users require in terms of product features, expertise, service levels, but not understanding enough of the decision makers and the influencers to the decision makers. What are their requirements? What are their priorities? To succeed in business to business, you really have to deliver to both the requirements of both the buyers, so the decision makers, and also the users. So you have to deliver what I call that dual B2B customer experience, where you're meeting the needs of both. That is how you succeed and grow in B2B.
Yeah, completely agree with you. We've got to think about the fact that, especially in a B2B sales environment, there are now more than ever more people involved in the buying decision. Not only do you have, maybe a group of users and one buyer, but you also have multiple buyers. So what have you seen has been really effective for the folks you're working with, Michael, on getting that feedback from folks involved in the buying decision that maybe aren't at the user level?
Yes. So, Logan, the key to really getting that in-depth understanding of those involved in the buying decisions, so your decision makers, your influencers, as well as the change agent, is really about listening, and you get listening by talking to them. So, Logan, this is not about doing your net promoter score or your customer satisfaction surveys. This is about getting into some structured, in-depth dialogue with those decision makers, with those influencers, to really understand what are the strategic priorities, what are their strategic objectives, what are some of their personal objectives that they're trying to achieve. Are they trying to achieve market share? Is it identifying new growth opportunities? Are there specific challenges that the business is trying to achieve? And so you really have to have that in-depth discussion to really understand at a very detailed level what it is they're trying to achieve. And you get that through dialogue and discussion, which could be through focus groups, through customer visits, through strategic customer workshops. But it's about having that in-depth dialogue so you know the hows and whys, where to focus, what you need to improve on, why it's required, and then that will give you the detailed information for you to be able to identify where you need to focus in your organization, what you need to deliver, and how you need to deliver to those customers that you're seeking.
Yeah. And I'm sure that can definitely inform your marketing messaging as well, so that you're speaking to the what and the how that those buyers are looking for. The next thing I know you wanted to touch on, Michael, as we were chatting before the interview, was making sure that you're feeding this information back into your organization. Because if you're doing a great job of listening, but you're not disseminating that information, getting it out to the right people within your organization, then it's really not going to deliver any value. Tell us some best practices that you've seen there in how folks are feeding this information that they get from these in-depth dialogues back into their organization.
Yes, Logan. So when you get that in-depth dialogue through your interviews, your focus groups, your workshops, you really want to feed it to the various departments within your organization, because really all that deep insight is really going to help drive a lot of the key elements of your organization in terms of your products, your operations, your marketing, your sales, your customer service. And so generally, it will depend on how your organization best functions. What I've seen in my experience is that usually multiple means will be utilized. So it might involve having team and management briefings. So you're having a half-hour or 1 hour session where you're verbally debriefing those insights and learnings to members of your team and your management team as well. It could also be setting up a repository for the information, so some sort of centralized database, information system, what have you, where all that information can be collated and stored so that the various departments and the management within those departments can go back and get that information that they require at the level of detail that they need. So having a central repository is generally often also quite useful. And then also leveraging other means such as if you have an internal company intranet, town halls. So really working within how your organization likes to collate and disseminate information. But generally we found using multiple ways often works well, because sometimes you want to give the high level learnings as well as providing an opportunity for your respective team members to get access to the details so they can really develop the marketing campaigns, the new service processes, the new products and solutions, what have you.
Today's growth story revolves around search engine marketing. Delphix, a big data platform, had hired an agency to manage their Google ads a few years ago, but they weren't seeing the results they wanted to see. Being such a technical B2B solution, they set out to find a team that could take on their challenge. After countless proposals, they found the perfect fit: Directive Consulting, the B2B search marketing agency. In just 1 week after launching Directive's campaigns, Delphix saw their lead volume double and their cost per lead drop by 60%. I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too. So head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
Yeah, because the different departments from product to marketing to sales and customer success are probably going to use the details of that information in different ways. I think that's a great point, Michael. So if we move to the next step in the framework, innovate. A lot of listeners to the show are in the tech community, and so we think of innovation a lot when it comes to our product. But you specifically mentioned to me and talk about in your book innovating other than your product. Tell us a little bit about how this step in the framework can really affect growth when you look at innovation, not necessarily in a different way, but maybe in a little bit deeper way.
Sure, Logan. So if you're looking to have sustainable, profitable growth, Logan, B2B companies need to what I call business innovate. So it's not just looking at how do you innovate your product offering, but you need to look at the other dimensions within your organization. So are there opportunities to improve your service offerings in terms of value add service and support? Can you do process innovation in terms of the processes that are used within your organization when dealing with your strategic partners, with your customers? Then there is also organizational innovation. So what about entering joint ventures, alliances, partnerships to provide holistic end-to-end solutions and offerings for your clients and customers? Then there's also marketing innovation. So what new types of marketing innovations can you introduce to your organization to help engage your customers as well as promote your product and service offerings? A lot of studies have been conducted across Australia, Canada, the United States, and the UK, and they have found, particularly amongst your startups and your small and medium businesses, those companies that have been able to sustain high growth of like 20% or more year on year for 3 years or more, they tend to innovate at least on a minimum of 2 areas over and above just product. So if you want to have sustainable, profitable growth, you need to be looking not just at the product, but other elements of your organization, because that's how you will create value. That's how you will maintain competitive advantage and have that sustainable, profitable growth.
Completely agree with that, Michael. I just shared in one of our book review episodes, we started a new series, and we had just recently read as a leadership team a book entitled Radical Candor, which is a lot about communication within your team. But one of the concepts I took away from that book is that, one big idea is easy to replicate, but 1,000 small innovations are impossible to copy. And as you facilitate an environment of innovation when it comes to your customer experience, your processes, all the little tweaks and changes, all the small little good ideas that you can implement really can become your competitive advantage, because those are so much tougher to replicate as they add to the overall customer experience that you create. And I think that brands that focus on the experience that they deliver in addition to the product that they deliver and the problem that they solve are really going to have a competitive advantage. So I completely agree with you there. So the third stage you talk about in the book, Michael, is growth. Obviously, that's where we all want to get to. We want to continue to head in that direction. But you specifically touch on managing growth through people and culture. And I know you had one specific example of an insurance company that you work with. So tell us a little bit about how you see people and culture factoring into this next stage of growth, and break that down into that example that you mentioned to me beforehand as well.
Sure, Logan. So in terms of managing growth, to have that sustainable, profitable growth, you really have to manage your most important asset, which is your people. And how do you go about doing that? It starts with the leadership team, making sure that they're creating the right culture in the organization and establishing the necessary processes and systems so that you're getting in the right kind of talent, people with the right kind of mindset for your organization. But once you attain those great people, that you're empowering them, you're educating them so that they're developing their skills, they're getting their personal growth, they're having an opportunity to really have an impact on the organization, they're able to develop their skills, they're given an opportunity to innovate. It's very important that you create that culture of innovation, empowerment, people development, so that your people will grow and develop and stay with you as your organization grows and changes and continues to expand. So that is quite critical. One of my clients in Ottawa is an insurance company, a small, medium business organization of about 40 people, and they have been quite successful in maintaining that sustainable, profitable growth because, one, they are doing all of the key things necessary in terms of listening and having an ongoing program of listening and understanding their customers. They business innovate. They've done a lot of work around their products, their marketing, and also from an organizational standpoint, so working with strategic partners. But also the MD has also been quite specific and very proactive in ensuring that they have formal processes in place to bring the new staff along. There's a whole onboarding program and then an extensive development program to enable those staff to develop their skills on a regular, continual basis, and also providing an opportunity for them to innovate and work on some new projects, new initiatives that they can contribute to the company. And by doing so, they've been able to maintain sustainable, profitable growth, and they're continuing to do quite well in an industry that is typically somewhat a bit conservative and behind compared to others. So it's by doing all of those things and that last element, looking after your people and creating the culture to maintain and grow and develop your staff, that is the key to growth. Because as you expand and grow, you're going to need new capabilities, new skills. So you have to allow your people to develop those skills and put those skills into practice.
I love it. It definitely all comes together, and it's great to hear that story, Michael. If anyone listening to this would like to reach out to you, ask any follow-up questions, stay connected with you, or find your book, Listen, Innovate, Grow, what's the best way for them to reach out or go about doing that, Michael?
So people who would like to get more information can go to my website, listeninnovategrow.com. And there I have a whole series of tools, resources, including free chapter samples from the book as well. And you can also sign up for my newsletter, as well as they'll be launching Listen, Innovate, Grow TV, which will be a weekly YouTube channel providing tips and insights. So you go to listeninnovategrow.com, everything that you need to know about the book and tools that you can use right away will be available right there.
I love it. Michael, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and breaking down some of these topics on the show today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Logan. It's been great.
Digital marketing agencies have a tough job. You have to stay on top of the latest marketing strategies for your clients and your agency. What if there was a way you could address both at the same time? Imagine your agency putting out content with greater quality and quantity. Envision bringing your clients a turnkey solution for one of B2B marketing's fastest growing media strategies, podcasting. You know all those clients asking for your help with their account-based marketing efforts? Picture being the first to bring them the idea of content-based networking, showing them the proven strategy for breaking into their most coveted accounts. Here's the concept. Sweetfish Media is looking to work with a limited number of innovative agencies interested in a new partnership model. We produce a podcast for your agency. You introduce the power of podcasting and Sweetfish services to your clients. Everybody wins. Learn more at sweetfishpartners.com.